Okay, this is the first time I've ever recorded a video on my phone, so we'll see how this goes. So, this is a story of how I stopped wearing cheap shoes. So my parents both grew up really poor, and they had this thing about shoes. Like, they were always like, "No, don't, you can't wear cheap shoes. You know, you always need to have nice shoes even if the rest of your clothes are cheap, hand me down, whatever. You need to always, have nice shoes, because when you're poor, you might only have one pair of shoes. Like, my parents would have one pair of shoes that they did everything in, and then they have another pair of shoes that they wore to church or something like that. And my mom's feet actually got really messed up because she had to wear shoes that were like the wrong size. So she used to always, they would always tell me, "We don't want you to wear cheap shoes." But when I was a kid, I used to love my Bobos. Remember Bobos? Bobos make your feet feel fine. Bobos cost $1.99. Okay, I loved my Bobos when I was a kid, like when I was like, 8, 9 years old. And they used to never like them, but I used to always beg for them. So anytime my mom would take me to like Roses, you know about Roses? If you're from the South, you should know about Roses. Every time my mom would take me to Roses or like the Winn Dixie, I would reach my little hands in the Bobo bin and I would get a new, fresh white pair of Bobos, and I would be so excited. So I would, replace them like every week. Like my mom was, $3 a week on these like shoes that I love because they were nice and white and they went with everything. So I used to wear my Bobos like all the time. Like I played outside in them, and I hated wearing shoes anyway. Like I like being barefoot, and obviously Bobos are like the closest thing to getting barefoot. And I would ride my bike in them and everything. And I would also like go outside with my great uncle, who I loved, who passed away a few years ago. At like he's like 80 years old, but when I was growing up, I was around him all the time. Me and my cousin, he used to always have us doing stuff on the farm. I grew up on a farm. So the only thing that he would not let us do on the farm, because we used to do everything. Like we used to like pick butter beans, pick pecans, snap peas. I mean, we did everything, but he would not let us help him feed the hogs, because he would always say like, "Oh, the hogs are mean; they'll kill you." I'm not sure that was true, but that's what he would say. He would say, "No, you can't help me." So one day I was in my room and I happened to look out the window and I saw him outside, like all the way, like I look all the way. And I saw him outside feeding the hogs. So I know that he always said, "No, you can't help me." But I was just thinking to myself, he needs me. So, so I throw on my clothes and I lace up my Bobos and I zoom out the house, past my mom, "Bye mom," past my dad, "Bye," and and I run outside and I run all the way to the hog pen. Like I ran past my dog, past my two pet ducks, Poindexter and Robin, all the way past the goats, and past my all my dad's hunting dogs, past the trailer with all the farm equipment and everything, and I get to the hog pen. So I get to hog pen. I could not. I try to go through. He didn't see me, but so I try to get in the pen like through the fence, but I jiggled the lock and I couldn't. I couldn't get it open. So I'm like, I'm gonna hop the fence. So I backpedal a little bit, and then I get some momentum and I run, and I run. I get and I put my hand on the bar like halfway the fence, and then I hop over the fence. And so, but when I hopped, I landed on a board that had a rusty nail in it. And it was really long, and it was so long that it went all the way through my Bobos and into my foot. So I screamed, "Ah!" like that. And that's when he saw me and he was like, "What are you doing out here? I told you never to come out here." And I'm like, "There's a hole in my foot. There's a hole in my foot." And so he's like, "What do you mean?" And I'm like screaming. And so I I hopped back over the fence and I ran all the way home, hopping on one leg, screaming, "There's a hole in my foot." Like I ran all the way back past the goats, past my ducks, everything on one leg. So I get to the house and I'm like hopping around the living room. My mom's like, "What's wrong? Sit down." And I was like, "I have a hole in my foot. There's a hole in my foot." And so at some point, I started hopping on the foot that I injured. So when I sat down, and my mom took my Bobo off, she was like, "I don't see anything." And I was like, "Not that foot, Mom. It's the other one. The other one has a hole in it." And she was like, "But you were hopping on that one." I'm like, "I don't know." So, so she takes my other shoe off and she looks at it. And of course, there's like blood everywhere. Like my whole Bobo sole has a hole in it. And obviously, you know, whatever. So by this time, my great uncle gets to the house and he's like, "She stepped on a nail. And that nail, it's rusted. You need to take her to the hospital." So, oh my God, my eyes are so red. It's so late. Um, but anyway, so my great uncle's like, "You got to take her to the hospital because that nail was probably there since slavery." I mean, I'm not even kidding. Like that, our farm had been in our family for generations upon generations. So only God knows how old that nail was. So we go to the hospital and I, have to get a tetanus shot. But they have to give me the tetanus shot in the hole where the nail went. So, of course, I almost died. Like, it was this huge needle that they had to put in the hole in my foot. So, long story short, that was like I never wore Bobos again. I'm just gonna put that shit out there. And I never wore them again. I was like, okay, my parents are right. Like, you cannot wear cheap shoes. I never wore, and I have not worn a pair of cheap shoes since. Well, I think I wore like a cheap pair of flip flops when I went to Puerto Rico a few years ago, and yeah, walking on the beach, the thong of the flip flop broke. So I'm very opposed to cheap shoes. I don't fuck with cheap shoes. Cheap shoes clearly don't fuck with me. So, that's my story. Bobos did not, they did cost $1.99, but they did not, in fact, make my feet feel fine.